Hello again. My name is Ulrika Myhr. I'm a physical therapist from Sweden working at Learn to Move, and this is the third video regarding treatment of cerebral palsy, and today's topic is sitting and posture and balance in sitting. It's a subject matter that I have a lot of experience from. Just like before, our gold standard or our blueprint for learning to sit is understanding the details of normal development and doing the little bits and pieces that children usually do when learning to sit. I want to let you first know that my late mother actually wrote this thesis, which is called On Factors of Importance for Sitting in Children with Cerebral Palsy. And as a young PT, I participated in many of the studies. One study that I will soon show you a video from regarded 80 children with severe CP, GMFCS level 4 and 5. And 40 of them lived in Uppsala, where I worked, and 40 in the north of Sweden. And they mostly sat in a backward leaning position with straps over their shoulders, and the whole body was actually the base of support. And what we did was to allow the children to sit upright and have a hip belt, a dynamic leg divider. This is an old one, but very good, creates a good base of support. And also that the center of gravity of the trunk was in front of the hip joint so that they could use their postural muscles. And we saw an incredible change in these children immediately. But we also followed up after 5 years. And what did I learn? Basically, I learned that all children can learn to sit if you have high tone, if you have dystonia, or if you have extremely low tone. I was very surprised. Here is a movie about a girl, I think she's 6 or 7 at the time, with ataxic diplegia. And you see her as she's sitting normally, and then how we change her sitting position. And notice especially how her head control and her ability to move her arms and use them changes. So this is her in her regular school chair as it had been for many years. And you can see she has a backward tilted seat and she is pushing a lot against the neck support and her arms are moving back. Her teacher will try to let her use her arms, but it's difficult because they are just pulled back the whole time. And many times this is called a spastic movement pattern, but I want you to notice what happens when she sits differently. Now she is losing balance and cannot regain it. This is what we did. We changed the position of the seat so that she had a better pelvic position. She had a dynamic leg divider and a hip belt and her center of gravity in front of her hips. And this is the immediate effect. So look at her arms and her head. All of a sudden she can use her arms. Yep, as you could see, there was an incredible change. And there are some myths about breaking spasticity in sitting. And one of them is that we should sit with very flexed legs in order to break the spasticity. My doll, unfortunately, has legs that are too short, so I brought a little monkey here that has very long legs. And just to show you, if we flex the hips and the knees, we know that if you sit in a backward leaning position with very flexed legs, spasticity is great. If you sit upright, it's okay, but this is not a great position. But if you sit like this, in a forward leaning position, using your postural muscles, then there is hardly any spasticity. So the importance is not the flexion of the hip and the knees, it's the location of center of gravity. And to try and make it very clear, I have some pictures that illustrates all these 80 children in the research study. We made some pictures. Here is one where you see that when the center of gravity moves behind the base of support, there is a lot of spasticity. This is a picture image of when it exactly passes the hip joint, and that's when the child starts to lose control. And here is an image of when the child sits with the center of gravity above the base of support and doesn't have spastic movement pattern the same way. Okay, except for that, we need to understand what we should strive for. And one thing with the chair is that the pelvic position will determine if I sit straight or if I sit like this. And we have three positions. This is a backward tilted pelvis, this is a neutral, and this is a forward tilted pelvis. How does the chair affect my pelvic position? Well, now I'm sitting pretty good posture. But if I use this wedge and put it like this, ooh, I feel like a queen. I have a really good posture. And if I do the opposite, that I put it in a backward leaning position, what happens? I get a backward tilted pelvis and I cannot even sit up straight because I will fall back. So please let your child have a flat seat. Sometimes leaning forward if you're really moving forward, but a flat seat, and hopefully the back support should be able to move without changing the position of the seat. What else? Well, we need a very common problem is that the seat depth is too long. The seat depth should not go to my knees. It should be shorter, about 2/3 of the thigh. Let's see if you can see here. If I sit with my knees here, I cannot move my feet back. Like if I lean my body forward, I want to be able to move my feet back. And it's very common that the seat depth is too long, and then what happens? I sit like this. So please make sure that the seat depth is not too long. Okay, what about learning balance? In sitting, we learn balance forward first. Secondly, we learn to the side. And lastly, we learn to rotate backwards. So if I have a good secure seat and I have my child sitting in a chair at a table, maybe they will boink their head down on the table. What should I do? Well, I think I should wait a little bit and see, how can I get up? I maybe need to hold something here and so they can see and raise themselves up. Maybe I have to start, but I want to give them time to problem solve and get up. I had one father once who told me he has never let his child fail, and that's quite common in CP. His child had sat very erect, and all of a sudden when he had her in his lap like this, he lowered his hands and he let her fall to the side. Before, his instinct was to help her back up, but instead of helping her, he just left her here. And what happened? She got up by herself. And why is that? When it comes to what we call equilibrium reactions, falling to the right, moving to the left, falling to the left, moving to the right, there are some things that are genetic, and that is specificity of direction. I know that if I fall to the right, I need to move to the left. And children with CP most of the time knows this. But The thing that they never get a chance to practice is the speed of reaction, and therefore we need to wait for them and give them tasks. We need to stabilize the pelvis, but allow them to learn equilibrium reactions. And they learn quickly, to be honest. Lastly, we learn backward. Sitting on the floor is a bit of a different thing, and we're going to talk about that perhaps in a different movie. In this project with children with cerebral palsy, one study regarded normally developed children, and we sat them exactly as the children with CP were sitting, and they had EMG electrodes, and we measured their activity, and actually they got a spastic movement pattern. So it's sometimes the position that creates the spasticity. The girl you saw had a classic diplegia. We also had children with extremely low tone and no head control, and I thought maybe they cannot learn to sit, but they received sitting shells which helped them get the erect posture, and they had head support that was behind them if they fell, but just getting the help to sit erect, they learned to sit. It was absolutely fantastic. The third group was CP as kids with dystonia that go from this to breaking chairs. Many of them stand up in the chairs and break them. For them, it's extremely important to take away all the things that they can push against. They should really have a low back support, maybe side support, really good base of support, hip belt. And if they don't have anything to push against, they will first be very surprised and maybe cry. But then you need to show them, maybe in a mirror or a movie, that you cannot do that, and they will learn to control. This has to do with how much we believe that kids can learn, but we have to allow them to make mistakes and learn, and to teach them. Okay, so in sitting, we need to have an erect posture, use our postural muscles, learn balance forward, sideways, backwards, have a seat that's flat and high enough. The butt should be higher than the knees. The seat depth should go to about 2/3 of our thigh, and we don't want a backward leaning seat. We prefer a flat seat or maybe a slightly forward tilted seat. We want to be able to move the feet backward when the body moves forward. Okay, so I hope you get some news from this information, and look forward to seeing you soon again.